the Unlock Your Blocks podcast. My name is Elyssa Smith, and I'm so excited to welcome you into today's episode, especially if you are a young person going through some of life's early transitions after school. That can be such a challenging part of life, just figuring out what you're going to be doing, your 5-year plan. Everyone's asking you, of course, like, okay, what's your major and what are you going to do? And it can be so challenging those first 10 or 15 years out of high school. So my guest today, Hilary Spiritos, is going to help us with all things life transition early on. She's a pathfinding coach who wants you to pursue the life that you want to live. She wants to help you trust yourself, discover all that you're capable of, and realize that you have the tools to compose your own unique life. Hilary's mission is to help young adults find the courage, the creativity, the grit, the resourcefulness, and the resilience to create and execute the steps to move forward in your life. She wants to help you figure out what's next, understand and overcome what's in your way, and create action plans for building a life that's invigorating, meaningful, and sustainable. She has her BA from Duke University and a master's from NYU, and she has been through these transitions herself, and she's here today to share with us some of her magic. Thank you so much for being on the show, Hilary.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to dig into this today because I think there's a real gap. At least I experienced a gap of support from the day you graduate high school when everyone expects you to know what to say to, like, what are you going to do? The ever dreaded question, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it's like, even if you have a college plan, a university plan, I mean, really, we have no idea what we're going to do. We have no idea what life is going to end up looking like. We also can't anticipate things like trauma or tragedies that occur or huge life transitions that maybe we weren't expecting or planning on. So it's so wonderful that you do what you do with the age group that you do, because I think in our 20s, in our early 30s, it's like, I'm supposed to be an adult here, but what is this adulting thing? This is really, really hard, and no one really prepares you for that. So I'd love to know a little bit about how you got into the type of coaching that you do and what gave you this idea to help this demographic of women and people to overcome these challenges of early life transitions.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a great question and a beautiful way to start this conversation because you've just said so many things that I have sparked thoughts and ideas. But I started out in this space as an RA when I was an undergrad in Duke University. And that was my first real exposure to working with young adults and helping them figure out who they are, what they wanted out of their college experience, what they were interested in, kind of navigating this path of their life. And I just was in love with that. And then I ended up working as an academic advisor at NYU and Northeastern in Boston. And I realized that young adults were really needing this someone in this in-between space that wasn't parents, friends, or a therapist, and someone who was a near peer objective person that could help guide them, who's been through it themselves. And so I opened up my business during the pandemic when I had people from these universities, like students, past students, family, friends, people from all different walks of life asking to speak to me. And so that is where Bad Outta Hell, my business, began. And I'm really passionate about this age group for a few reasons. One is that for so long, as you've alluded to, we all go along the same path and we do the same things at the same time and at the same pace as everybody else. That is a generalization, but it is true. We're all kind of on this track. And then at university, that kind of falls away. And then especially after university, everyone is just on their own path and on their own track. And that's such an interesting time of anxiety and confusion and the unknown and questions, but also exploration and opportunity and possibility and imagination and figuring out who you are and what you're capable of. And I just love that dichotomy or that juxtaposition. And I also just really love this age group in that they don't believe in the mantra of this is how it's always been done. And I just think they're really badass individuals who are the stewards of our planet and can really make or break and shape the world that we're living in. And you're right in what you said earlier. There is a gap and there isn't much light shown on this age group. And even if there is, it's often in a belittling kind of, oh, not how I used to do it in my age or whatever that saying is. And so that's not helpful. So I think it's beneficial to have someone that you can talk to and be open with and figure out who you are and what you want and what you value. And that is what I help young adults do.
That is so fantastic. And I love how you came to this organically. By the way, fellow RA here. I was an
Yeah.
RA for 3 years of university at DePauw. And I relate to what you shared. It's like being able to help somebody who is in this inevitably uncertain gray area time of their life where so much is forming and their ideas about the world. And honestly, and you may know this, the frontal lobe of the brain
Mhm.
that's responsible for so much of our maturity is really not developed until we're 25, 26, 27 years old. So during that time, to expect that you should have it all together, oh my goodness. And I use that word lightly, should. You shouldn't should on yourself, right? But I remember thinking during those years, I'm supposed to have this figured out. And a lot of other people that I knew, like they went on to law school, they went on to medical school, they got their teacher's licenses, and they were all doing like adult jobs in their 20s. And I was working retail. And I had no idea at the time how what I was doing would actually shape the coaching that I now do because I was working in the fitness industry and I ended up coaching people and I ended up doing some different things to develop more life skills. I had no idea. And I just felt like such a failure. And it's like, okay, so you just sort of climb up the corporate ladder somewhere. And so I was kind of like doing that in retail. And it really didn't hit the spot for me. And I could have used somebody like you at that time to say, well, hey, maybe you take this set of skills and transfer it over here. And everything ended up working out for me. But I just remember that feeling of having no grip. I just felt like I was flailing through the air during that time of life. So, as you have developed into what you're doing right now, have you yourself experienced any sort of self sabotage, any limiting beliefs or blocks that you're coming up against? Because one of the huge things we talk about on this podcast are the 3 Ps, which is procrastination, perfectionism, and people pleasing. And we also talk about their two friends, imposter syndrome and negative self talk, and they tend to travel in a kind of intimidating herd, right? So
Mhm.
they
Little
all come at
gang.
once. Yeah, right, little gang. So, what have you experienced with all of that, especially having come through these really significant life transition moments yourself?
Great. Yeah. Great question. I think the first thing that I would say is that as a young person myself, I grew up always just like looking into the eyes of everybody around me, trying to figure out what they wanted me to say and trying to figure out what I could do and say to be successful, good enough, palatable, okay in their eyes. And that led me to not know what actually I wanted and not really try to look inward and figure out like who Hillary was. And because I think what I also knew internally that what I wanted and what I valued wasn't what, and I hate to say this word again, I thought I should.
Yeah.
So I wasn't interested in necessarily climbing this corporate ladder that was like not something that I valued. And I thought I should. But the thing is, if you value something else, then like that doesn't mean that's any less important or significant or valid than what somebody else might value, even though we in this society have put maybe a corporate ladder up on a pedestal, which to be fair, I do think that's changing. But yeah, I spent a lot of my time trying to be what I imagined would be good enough. And finally, I realized that I was just, well, I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was doing something else that I didn't want to be doing. And I just decided to make a change. I decided to make a shift. And that was very hard. And I had a lot of self doubt and I was unsure of what I was doing. But I think that's part of the work that I help young adults do is you don't have to know what you want. You don't have to know what exactly you're doing. You want to develop the skills and tools that will help you feel in control and feel like an adult and feel like you can navigate your life, which is resilience, self-awareness, self-trust, the ability to stand alone and tolerate discomfort. Like you don't have to have all the answers. And to be fair, nobody ever really does, right? And you never have it all figured out, whatever it is. But if you know, like as you did, I'll try this and it doesn't really feel right. I'll try something else. I'll learn something and then I'll grow and then I'll learn that as an opportunity for something else. Like that's what life is. Adventures and opportunities for growth.
I love that. Mic drop. We're done with the episode. Okay, bye guys. Thank you for coming to this this episode of Unlock Your Blocks, and we'll close out. No, it's really true. I think what we get told is you can be anything, and you, so that means this certain set of things. Like in my family, that kind of meant like you should be a lawyer, you should go and do these things. You can be anything means you should perform high and go after the traditional things because you're so smart and you're so, I mean, I got a lot of good affirmation about how intelligent I was and that I could do anything. But then there was this sort of unspoken expectation of what that looks like in the real world. And so I think that it's so brave that you were in a place where you're like, okay, this isn't hitting the spot and I need to pivot. What did you find the most challenging? I mean, I loved what you said about looking into other people's eyes to know what you should say. That was a page out of my own book. I thought you
Yeah.
captured that beautifully. Going from that to a bat out of hell, like getting out of
Yeah.
the total expectation of everyone else and the people pleasing part of that. What did you do that really helped you get through to the other side to where you could just create this thing out of, kind of a passion project?
That's a really great question because again, it goes back to what I help my clients do, which is mine their internal life. Like, because I had so focused on the external world and because I had so focused on what I thought other people wanted me to do, I had no idea what I wanted. So I remember I was in college and I was like, I don't know what I want to major in. I'm not passionate about anything. I have no idea. And the truth is, of course, I wasn't not passionate about anything. Like, I believe that everybody has something somewhere that is an interest, but it might not be able to be heard by that person. And I don't think
Mm.
I allowed myself to even hear what I was interested in because ultimately what I was interested in at the time was theater. Think actually ended up studying theater and comparative religion, which was brilliant, but like I didn't think that I started out studying political science and chemistry. Like I didn't know that that was an option. And so what was really scary to me was just looking inward and not finding anything or like not knowing what the answers to the questions I was asking myself was. And so I did, which was really challenging and very difficult, is you sit with yourself and you sit in silence or, with your thoughts and you sit and you ask yourself these questions and you really like just try to, I mean, you don't force it. You might go for a walk or go for a run or like do a class or, it ruminates in your mind at all times when you're asleep, all this stuff. But like, you don't ask anyone else what you should be doing. You really take the time to figure it out yourself. And you know that I make a decision, I try, I do it. And if I don't like it, I can change. I think a lot of people, including myself when I was younger, felt like you make a decision and that's it. Like you choose a career and that's it. And what you realize about paths in your journey, and like as you get older, this becomes more and more clear. Like it's winding, it changes. Like it's not, you have to be open to the pivot. It's not something that's just one choice and you're done. So that, while it could be scary, gives a freedom of like, it's not forever, right? Like life is hopefully long and we can make all of our choices.
I love that. I mean, you said so many things that I'm pretty sure, like, listen, if you're listening and you're feeling a little attacked right now, like, what do you mean I can change my mind? Like, I don't think you understand my life. I think so much of this goes back to our early childhood programming because
Huge.
so the way that the survival system exists inside of us, right? The amygdala and the vagus nerve and all the different parts of the system that are designed just to help you survive whatever you need to survive, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response will start programming in stuff at an early age to where it's like, you got to balance the family. And in my case, I mean, so I talk about three types of trauma. I talk about big T trauma, that's like the catastrophic stuff that we imagine: war, being attacked, violence. And then I talk about little t trauma, which is non-violent traumas, usually recurring over time. So it could be bullying, or it could be a one-off thing like losing a pet, something where you're not sure how to navigate your feelings. And then I also talk about tiny t trauma, which is the term that I've coined to talk about developmental emotional traumas growing up, where you learned to be a perfectionist in order to anticipate the people's needs around you. And in order to get the most connection you could, you perform perfectly as often as you can. And you don't make mistakes because maybe you get in trouble or you get people, your caregivers withdraw from you emotionally when you make mistakes. So when we grow up knowing that to get our needs met, we've got to balance out the family. So if mom is having trouble managing her own emotions, we will step in and help mom manage emotions. If dad is an alcoholic who gets mad when the kids are loud, we get smaller and quieter and we have our needs go under water and we don't get our needs met. So when we then become young adults in our 20s, and it's like we've had a couple of decades playing small according to someone else's rules, ripping that rug out from under us could be kind of brutal. So
Yeah.
what do you see with your clients when you work with young adults? Like how do you help them navigate that ripping the rug out from under their childhood belief situation?
Well, that's spot on. So it is. So the thing is, I'm with you. I fully believe that it's not really possible to live your fullest, fiercest, most authentic life without cultivating and developing a relationship with your inner child. Because as you're saying, like we our inner child is, I believe, where our like spark and our curiosity and our passion and our zest for life and all of that exists. And then over time, because we as children desire love and acceptance and approval and like need love, security, and safety, we mute and dull that part of ourselves to become more palatable to others. And so we don't experience embarrassment, rejection, and shame. And so we like what I do with my clients is I help dig into that and unpack maybe the stories that they've told themselves or the lessons that they've learned. Or if, we're talking with a client and somebody says that I like, that's not good enough or something. You're like, why is that not good enough? What does that mean? Like what does success mean to you? Those kind of questions. What is failure? And then you dig into that, or you're like, why are you not raising your hand and speaking aloud in meetings? And and if you dig a little bit deep and dig deep enough, you realize that they were learned at some point, or they were taught at some point that they needed to become smaller or couldn't speak up for fear of retribution or something happening, or feeling like their voice wasn't adequate or valid. So that's what I do with my clients, because this work is really about how your personal anxieties, fears, and insecurities manifest and interact with your specific circumstances. So until you dig into that, until you unpack that and own your fears and anxieties and insecurities and recognize where they come from and see how they manifest in your daily adult life, you'll be at the mercy of them. And once they become conscious, you can then, which is what happened to me, realize I don't want to live my life from this place. I don't want to live my life from a place of fear, from bowing down to these anxieties. I would like to live my life from my adult self. And then you go from there. I mean, this is like very hard work, and it can also be very uncomfortable, but it could also be very joyous and exciting. But I do think that's necessary for sure.
Absolutely. And I love something that you said earlier. You said you looked inside and couldn't see anything. And it didn't mean that it wasn't there. It meant that it wasn't audible for you.
Mhm.
And I love that because our survival system is very dedicated to keeping quiet any desires or needs it has that it thinks are going to jeopardize your safety emotionally or physically. Right. So
Mhm.
we have this, I think we've all been to that place. We can all relate to this where you're like, but what is it? And you're like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
what is the next right step? And that is the work, like you said, just to sit with, I don't know. And to sit with, what if I try something? And maybe it wasn't safe to try anything and fail in your past, existence. So that's another thing that I do with my clients too, which is we work with the inner child and we kind of uncover, at what point did she stop talking to you? At what point did she not feel safe to have her needs out there? And I think so much of our reparenting journey as adults is going back to that place where we kind of I joke that had to go back on the highway and like pick her up from where I kicked her out of the car.
Totally.
Because it's like, I mean, I have a better image in my mind now, but when I first started doing my own inner child work, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just left her out there and I haven't seen her in years. And then it was like, oh, okay, so actually she's with me and I can use what my needs are and my discomfort to inform my decisions. And it is hard work. But I think too, one of the things that I see a lot with women who are doing this work is we never have to take more steps than we're okay to do. And I'd like to talk about this concept called the window of tolerance, where it's like
Mhm.
whatever you can do that doesn't throw you so far outside your window of tolerance that you start to sabotage that. So we only grow as we can enlarge this window of tolerance, and it has to be done in this sort of cocoon of safety. so that the nervous system and the inner child parts feel safe. How do you help your clients build safety during this time so that they're not just like, it's too hard and we run away? Because I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what that's like to just be like, I can't do it.
And I think what I will start this off by talking about, I think it's important to redefine what courage is. And I think sometimes we talk about courage and it's like these big, grand, like running into a burning building or moving country or like something that's like huge. And what you don't quite register, and I find that my clients don't register, is that you engage in acts of courage on a regular basis. And it is acknowledging that and not dismissing it as if everybody's doing it or it's not that big of a deal or, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. Like without dismissing it, to recognize that I've actually done something that took effort or went outside of my comfort zone or I thought I couldn't do or tried something new or what have you. And I survived or thrived or really enjoyed it. And I think it's important to celebrate that and recognize it. And compounding to that, I think precedent. Whoa, wow. Why did I think precedent is really important. So recognizing those things and realizing that I've gone outside of my comfort zone before, even if it's not exactly what we're talking about, the same exact thing, or even if what the thing I'm looking to do is maybe a little bit further outside of my comfort zone, I'm taking those steps and know that I've like done the building blocks to get to the next step. And then I can keep going outside of that window of safety. So it's really taking stock of what you've done and realizing what you're capable of and taking ownership of your successes and your acts of courage and realizing that you want to engage with the world in a certain way. So it's like, if you're looking at a choice, do you actually want to do it and are nervous about it? Are you anxious and excited? Or do you just actually not want to do it? Because if you don't want to do it, that's one thing. But if you're anxious and excited, do you want to let the anxious part win or do you want to try the thing? And I think that's an important conversation to have as well.
Absolutely. I think that kind of brutal honesty with ourselves, I would say probably 80% of my life up until I was like, I don't know, 35, was stuff that other people wanted me to do or stuff that I just thought I had to do because I couldn't have what I really wanted.
Sure.
And that really resonates with me that you have to, and I felt like a failure the whole time doing it. I mean, I talk about my sort of come to Jesus moment, in my early 30s, and it was a moment where I was just like, I'm a total failure. Like, I'm late everywhere. I procrastinate everything. I'm just really bad at this. Like, I didn't think I was a good mom. My body was broken. I was like, my body's failing me. And I didn't know at the time how much trauma I was dealing with because I think that plays into it a lot. But I didn't feel safe in my own body. I had no idea that it wasn't really my fault that I was procrastinating. I was late. It was all these protector parts that were being really loud saying, you can't succeed and this isn't safe and this isn't safe and what you really want is not valuable. So of course I was procrastinating. Of course I was putting off big things. Of course I was feeling like a failure. But at the time I just thought, gosh, I guess I'm just bad at this. I think I might just be bad at life.
Well, I think that's really interesting because I have a client who was on plan to go to medical school and that's what they were like always planning on doing. It came time to apply, send those medical school applications, fill them out, and they couldn't do it. And they were like, I keep fucking procrastinating. I can't do it. I don't know why. And ultimately, it became clear that they didn't even want to do it. It was what their parents wanted them to do. And so procrastination is interesting. And there are a lot of different reasons why someone might do it. And it might be because of trauma. It might be because you actually just aren't feeling like doing that thing at the moment. And in
Yep.
that case, maybe you should just maybe it's time you need to focus on finishing that task. But it could also be because it's an indication that you actually don't want to do that thing.
It's
And it's
not
important to listen to that.
aligned. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
not in alignment with you. Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, what have you been able to accomplish in your life once you left behind that sort of needing to please everybody else thing? What has this, new experience been like for you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of emotional, right? Because my life has opened up in such a way that I have been able to start my own business. I moved to a different country. I have been able to like make incredible friends, and I've engaged in different like classes and activities and doing things that have been interested in. And the reason why I also spoke about making great friends is because I took those classes that I just like decided to try and then met people there. So I think that's not to say that I am done with feeling those things, but I do think that there's a lighter feeling. There's a feeling that I'm the only one that has to live with the consequences or live with the way I'm living my life. And I do not want to look back and think that and realize that I've lived my life for somebody else. And I say this with my clients all the time, like, you are at such an amazing point in your life where you are just starting out and you can just start out in the direction that you want to go in. And that doesn't mean that you can't change, as we spoke about, but like, I think what's so heartbreaking is when you look back and you realize that that's not the life you wanted to live. And so if you recognize that, or if you, sometimes clients come to me and they're like, I see what the future looks like and I don't want to do that. So I need to kind of make that shift and do something different so I don't end up there. Or if I keep doing the same thing, this is what I'll end up with. So it's really important to just realize that like being an adult in your own life, while scary, because you stop looking for the approval of other people, it's also the stance of empowerment and control, and ultimately it will make you feel better. Because that's another thing. For a long time, I was like, oh, if I just get the approval from other people, I'll feel like it's okay. But I also felt like I wasn't in control of my own life. And like I was always looking for the approval of other people. And now I feel like I don't need their approval, right? I can wear whatever I want. I can do whatever I want within reason. And it's just a
Yeah.
whole different way of operating and like going at life and being an active participant.
That is just incredible. I love hearing you talk about what it's like now, because that's what we all want, right? We want that autonomy. We want to not look back and regret how we were spending our time because we thought we should do those things. And yet we have to figure out how to tolerate the change.
Sure.
So this is fantastic, because the next thing I want to ask you is for somebody who's listening right now, maybe somebody between the ages of 18 and 35, and they're going through these life changes or maybe questioning their choices. Maybe they're in corporate, they don't want to be in corporate, but that's what they've put their heart and soul into. What would you tell them as their very first step toward this place of freedom that you're now in?
I would first say breathe. It's okay. It's fine.
We
And
were all just holding our breath right now.
yeah, and I would just say like remember and recognize that it's okay. Like it's normal and you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you to feel this way. And then I would also really take some time to think about what you want and what you value outside of the noise. And I would not ask for anybody's opinion. I would not necessarily talk about it with anyone else and get any advice from external sources. I would just really think about it and mull it over. And then if you're feeling like you need a little bit of help or need to talk to somebody, then I would reach out and maybe talk to me or somebody else. But I think it's just so important. We live in a world with so much noise, whether it's friends, family, social media, teachers, therapists, whatever. And I think it's very important to really like shut that down for a little bit. Like turn off the phone and just think about what you want. Feel it in your body, what feels good. Cuz I also fully believe in your body having a physical manifestation of pain or of excitement. And so you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your body.
I agree with that so much. So much. It's so powerful how we were made to be able to follow our own path, but only if we feel totally safe to do so.
Yeah.
And so creating that safety from scratch is so challenging, but it's such a juicy challenge. I remember the feeling when I first started to make this shift in my life, later than you did, sadly, but now I'm loving it. But I remember when I started to make this shift, it was like this huge relief when I finally realized that hurts because that's not right for me. This
Yeah.
relationship hurts because it doesn't work anymore. This, job hurts because this is not what I was made to do. This circumstance or this group of friends or this line of education, it's not because I'm wrong. It's because the circumstance isn't right for me. And that was
Right.
such a relief. And I could feel that in my body. I remember the first time I just like exhaled with that
Right.
information.
And I also think it's important to note exactly what you're talking about this with safety. You need to create that safety within yourself, right? And that is what I'm talking about when I talk about being an adult in your own space. Like you need to create that like love feed back to yourself, like, I am okay. It is okay that I'm doing this. It is okay that I'm trying something new. I'm capable. I have done some things like this before and I've survived. I also think, just to go back to our like the very last question, don't judge yourself, because exactly what you're saying, like, compounding what you're already feeling with judgment is just going to make you feel even worse and going to make it harder to make the decisions and listen to your own like inner voice. So try to not compound the way you're feeling with, oh my god, there's something wrong with me, or there's judgment, or everybody else knows what they're doing and I don't, or I'm behind. All of that stuff is baloney anyway, but just repeating that to yourself is not helpful.
It's so true. And I just am thinking about like the decades of my life that I spent doing that,
Yeah.
just really judging myself so hard. And it just,
I mean,
it's,
I just said baloney and I never say that. And I'm just judging myself right now.
no, it's adorable. And I love
And I
baloney.
was like, can
And
I curse on this thing? And I
that's
think I have
baloney.
already.
Yeah, no, we're good. I know. It's so funny. So I think that, and that constant second guessing is a protector part, right? I mean,
Sure.
that the second guessing is such a good way to kind of keep us in line when we're little, right? It's like you have to second guess yourself and you have to kind of read the room and make sure you're doing what the caregivers want you to do. But as adults, hey, it's you, it's me. I
Yeah,
don't,
exactly.
I get to feed my own self. I get to like provide my own house and my own clothing, and I get to do the job that I want to do for money to pay for those things. Like my well-being isn't in someone else's hands anymore. And it took a while for me to update all of my programs to understand that, right?
Of
So it just can
course.
take some reprogramming. Okay, so I want to ask you a couple of questions. I always finish with the last couple of the same for each guest. So I prepped you a little bit for this, so I hope you've had time to think about it. So one of the things I love to ask each person that comes on the show is, what is your favorite go-to pump up song? Like that song that you need to just kind of regulate your body, get into the groove, get motivated, get inspired.
Okay. I mean, so many come to mind. I'm also like a big, like, 70s, 80s person. So a lot of it is going to come from there. I think right now, it's hard. It's going to be either like Tina Turner or the Bee Gees, or like there's a band called Survivor. It's like some kind of like power, like 70s, 80s rock thing.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So you just turn on some 70s or 80s rock, get some Tina Turner going, and then you're regulated and ready for the
If you
day.
listen to the song Ask Me How I Feel by Tina Turner, you'll be good.
Okay, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Okay, that's your assignment, everyone. Go listen to that song. And then my final question for you, Hilary. Thank you so much for being on here and just sharing the gems of wisdom. And guys, everything that she's sharing, you can go straight to her website. You can follow all her links in the show notes. And I really encourage you to do that. And especially if you're in one of these life transition phases where you're like, shoot, I chose the wrong career. Like, no, I can't change my mind. Like, she's your girl for all of that good stuff. Okay, so final question. What is your go-to self-care? If you've only got a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, because I think that's one of the things with all the women listening to this show, like we're all busy, like we got stuff going on, and self-care can easily become this sort of huge thing to check off the list and doesn't feel very practical. So I love asking for ideas for 5 minutes or less.
I would say either for me, it is going for a walk or like getting outside in some way. If that's not possible, or what, like turning on music and then having a little dance party in my room, and just like some sort of movement or reshuffling or getting out of my head and into my body that recalibrates and helps me feel better. But also, it's just, life is hard and there's a lot going on in the world. So just like have as much fun as you can with it, I think.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah. And it's true. Getting out of your head and into your body is the way back home every single time. I love that you brought that up. And by the way, do you live outside the US right now?
Yes, I do. I live in London.
Oh, you do? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, I'll have to look you up when I'm over there. That's awesome. Very
Absolutely.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Hilary. Thank you for just everything that you shared, for sharing your journey, for sharing just such gems of wisdom about these life changes that we all face and the self-doubt that can plague us during all of that. And guys, I hope this was really helpful for you. Until next time, take such good care of yourself, and we'll see you right back here.
Thank you.